Welcome everybody to the fourth episode of the I Am No Expert F1 2012 Career Mode series. And before we get started, just taking a look at this new email that you get in F1 2012 that compares you to your teammate. And if you want to scroll back and pause it, you can take a closer look at it. But basically, you're compared with your teammate in terms of qualifying laps or pole positions, obviously race results, fastest laps, things of that nature. And it actually gives you a status if you're winning or losing versus your teammate, at least as of that race. And in my case, I'm losing currently. I think Ricardo's got one more fast lap on me or something like that. And you can see here, blowing the engine in my first lap of practice. And hadn't done that before, basically downshifted too early without deaccelerating, and that was the result. So that was a terrible way to start my weekend, obviously. But moving on here to Q1, let's see if we can make better of it. This is the return of Bahrain from the F1 2010 calendar. It was omitted in F1 2012 and came back this year under very controversial circumstances. And what would Formula One be without some sort of controversial race at some point in the season? So just taking a quick look at the weather this weekend, and that's going to determine our setup. And as you would expect, it's going to be dry as a bone all weekend. Although one interesting detail is that in the weather report for the start of the race, if you go back, you can take a look at it. Basically said that there was a chance of rain in qualifying, which I thought was pretty bizarre, especially being in Bahrain. But I guess it does rain there periodically, I guess I'd imagine. So just taking a quick look here at Q1. And we were able to escape in P13, and you can see our teammate Ricardo qualifying 16th, so definitely going to be an uphill climb to get out of Q2. But we'll see what we can do here. And in my previous series, my F1 2011 series, I didn't take you guys much through my weekend. I hope you don't mind that I'm doing that for this series, but I thought it'd be kind of cool to include it. It seems like each weekend prior to the race has its own unique story, so to speak, so I thought it'd be kind of cool to go through my strategies and what actually happens prior to the race, because that can be the story of the grid. Now, skipping down to the 5-minute mark, going to go ahead and get our hot laps going and see what we can do. Probably do 2 laps and hope to get into Q3, but I'm not going to hold my breath. Even though I have qualified in the top 10, I believe the first 3 races. I'd actually have to go back and look, but haven't had too many problems, but weather has been a factor. And you can see here at the end of my second lap getting P13 and winding it down. You can see that I'm going to go ahead and stick with that result. Currently leading Ricardo, who finishes in 15th. So at least we got the teammate challenge award there. And taking a quick look at the top of the grid, Sebastian Vettel on pole position. And should be able to get into the points, I hope. Haven't had too many problems getting up at least 3 or 4 spots, sometimes significantly more. Even though I haven't raced at Bahrain much in a year because of its omission last year, so I actually missed it. It's a pretty fun circuit. It's got a lot of wide parts of the track and definitely have some tricky corners, namely 8 and 10, which I'll show you as we go through the race here. Taking a look at the starting grid here, we got a all McLaren front row, Jenson Button on pole position, and Paul di Resta in the Force India qualifying 9th, so that's good for him. Grosjean there at 11th and Rosberg in 12th, and there I am 13th. And again, my teammate down in 15th. And Kimi Räikkönen all the way down in 18th. So a very disappointing start for Kimi and the Lotus. And so taking a look at our tire strategy here to start. And because we're starting 13th, going to go ahead and start on the primes and see if we can make up some ground near the end of the race. And we are due to pit in lap 8. And going to go ahead and use a normal race fuel strategy. And so we might have to play with it a bit during the race, but at least we'll be starting on a little less fuel than the cautious option, which is due to slow us down. And because we're starting on the primes, we certainly don't want to have that second disadvantage. And could be a bad gamble on my part, because I used to go out on the primes when I qualified less than 10th in 2011. But I do know that they've put more work into the Pirelli simulation results or effects with the tire wear, and so this could end up being a bad decision on my part, but that's why we're here to play and find out. Here we are to start here behind Grosjean in the Lotus and Nico Rosberg in the Mercedes on the right hand side, and here we go, leading in front of Maldonado in the Williams. But here comes Maldonado with a great start coming down here into turn 1, and now my teammate Ricardo pushing hard on the inside, and let's see what happens down here. Don't want to make contact with the back of the field. Have to maintain an outside position going into it, but now trying to worm my way through, and Sound of Carbon Fiber braking behind me, and now getting held up very, very badly by Nico Rosberg, and now Grosjean getting in on blocking me here. And that was terrible. They had slowed down a great deal. If I had been in a better position, definitely could have made a move. And now swooping in front of Sergio Perez and the Sauber. And now trying to get around Paul di Resta as he wavers. Now chasing down Schumacher through very tricky turns 6 and 7 and able to get on the inside and get ahead of the Mercedes. And now coming into the first hard turn that I had mentioned, turn 8. And handle it pretty well there, but will be very rare that you see that. Have a really hard time hitting it and usually go wide there. And coming down to one of the hardest corners in the game easily for me as I roll up over the curb, coming around turn 10. And you can see barely able to keep Schumacher behind us as we come down the first straight of the circuit. And you can see trying to keep Webber within my sights. I believe Vettel's leading in front of him. And coming around here in third gear and shifting up into fourth, accelerating out. And now coming along turn 13, should be able to take it flat out if you have your entry right, and to a very wide right-handing corner here, turn 14, and roll over the curb and start to lose grip. Very easy to spin out there. And you can see that Schumacher not able to exploit, but now pushing hard down the back straight here. And you have to think that the Mercedes is going to have the pace here along the start-finish straight as we come along at the end of lap 1. And you can see that he almost gets around there. I have slow exit speed. And here comes Schumacher, and there he goes. And only hope here is that we're going to be able to catch him at the end of the turn 1 and see if we can get around him. Looks like he's taking an inside line here and want to avoid contact with the back of him and roll up over the curb and cut off the chicane. And getting the warning there from the stewards for corner cutting, and that was pretty ugly. Basically overcorrected, trying to get around Schumacher. Was being pushed to the outside, but you can see he's pushing hard here again. And a very tricky angle here, turn 4. And you could see taking it a little too fast, but able to correct now, and still trying to chase down Webber and Vettel. And even though we get a purple sector here through Sector 1, only lap 2 of course, going to be a challenge to catch the Red Bulls at this point. Following them now here through turn 8 and managing it okay here in lap 2. And you can see a pretty good train of cars stacking up behind me as we come around, in my mind, the dreaded turn 10, and these skid marks are probably mine. And someone had some problems with the cones. You can see they're scattered all over the track. And Schumacher now having a look, and he's able to get pretty good pace on me on the straights, as you can see here coming around to the end of lap 2 and looking to have a move on the inside here. And this is a familiar scene at the end of lap 1. You can see he's having a look on the inside here, but going to run out of track and able to handle this hairpin a lot better than last time. In fact, I overshoot it just a bit. And can definitely tell that I'm going to have issues with the AI coming down the start-finish straight for the entirety of the race. So we'll have to wait and see how it goes. Coming around here back to turn 10. And you can see now Sergio Perez in the Sauber has gained some steam, and he's now riding P8. And the AI is able to catch up with me at turn 10 almost every time. Now Sergio Perez thinking down here at turn 11. But able to manage our speed pretty well there. It's very easy to drift off to the right there if you come around that corner too fast. And now you can see that Schumacher's back in the action, and he's overtaken for P8. Coming around here at turn 14, and AI is usually very, very quick coming out of this exit. But you can see that I'm able to stay ahead of the Mercedes coming down the straight and got a decent little gap right now. But usually here at the breaking point is when they catch up with me, and Schumacher may have another go. So coming around, and you can see the arrow indicators showing that he's very close. And now gaining some steam, and as we hit the DRS zone, you know that he's going to be able to make short work of me, and here he goes. Down along the inside, and hoping to overtake at the breaking point, and hopefully make it a lot cleaner. And thankfully able to manage the hairpin almost perfect, skip off over the curb, and you can see more cones knocked over. So the track getting a little beat up here from the people hitting the cones. Now speeding towards the very deceiving turn 4. And it's hard to get your entry right here. Easy to go wide and cut a little on the inside and start to lose the car over the curb. And able to regain control, but you can see that Schumacher's able to gain some ground on us. Now coming around these very, very fast sweeps. And you can see I'm going pretty slow, just kind of babysitting it to make sure I don't go off track. And trying to stay ahead of the Mercedes here and going a little bit wide. And you can see that Schumacher was coming in near the back of me, but didn't spin him out or anything like that. And going to try and stay ahead of him here at turn 10. You can see just how slow I'm going, getting very, very nervous under pressure here. And Schumacher feeling very aggressive and almost made a move there. And so far through 4 laps, that's been one area where the AI has not made a move, but they've been very, very close. And you can see Schumacher breathing down my neck right now. And now starting to lose it coming around turn 11, now getting swarmed by Schumacher. And what is probably Perez in the Sauber. and trying to fend them off, getting our line straightened out here, coming through turn 14, and trying to learn how to keep our exit speed coming around there. And you can see that Schumacher's still in tow, but only 0.3 of a second behind, and you can see that he's thinking about making a move here. Forget the start-finish straight. He's thinking about going here, but he's going to run out of circuit, and let's see what happens as we come around to the end of lap 4. And you can see the long train of cars behind me, and undoubtedly Schumacher's going to make a move here at the DRS, and let's see what happens. And there's the arrow, and there he goes. But just like in previous laps, should be able to get him at the braking point, and the story of this race thus far has definitely been the dueling with Schumacher right along here at turn 1. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see what happens when I go into pit, because that's when the pace of the AI will shake out, and we'll see just really how well we're doing. Skipping ahead here towards the end of lap 5, and you can see more problems with that curb at turn 11. And Schumacher again pushing, and this time not able to shake him quite as easy. And there's no question this is going to come down to another duel at the end of the lap. You can see able to trim off some of our time, but going wide here at turn 14, up on the curb for just a moment, and Schumacher was very keen to get around there for a moment, but able to pick up my speed and accelerate out and stay ahead. But again, I'm very, very confident that Schumacher will make a move down here, as he has the entire race, and you can see he's very close now. And what small gap I would normally have coming through here, I don't have now, burning off the last of our curves and seeing what we can do. This time Schumacher passing on the inside, and want to stay behind him here and try not to make contact coming into the braking point. Going to go ahead and take an inside line, and you can see that we're wheel to wheel, able to roll up over the curb and clean overtake. And so once again, back up into P7. So not able to gain any ground on the Mercedes, but at least holding my own. And now skipping further ahead here in lap 6. And back to turn 11, and let's see if we can get around here a little bit better this time. And no, still more wheel spin now, and just not being able to manage it, and Schumacher all over my gearbox. And really starting to wonder if I'll be able to fend off Schumacher until I pit. Remember, we did start on the prime tires, so that's definitely not helping my pace at all. But the idea behind that is that we'll be able to leapfrog the leaders and hopefully come out better. So that's a big reason why I started on the primes, kind of testing out the tires. Probably on the next time I qualify to the top 10, I'll start on the options and do a little compare and contrast, even though of course it does depend on the circuit. So here we are at the end of lap 6 and the start of lap 7, and we know what to expect. We know Schumacher's probably going to make a move down here. But no, actually Schumacher's gone into pit. Now we have Rosberg making a move on the outside, and he's not able to get around, and coming in behind Alonso, who's just coming out of the pit lane. So Schumacher goes into pit, and if it's not one German, it's another. Rosberg able to take his place right behind me now, pushing very, very hard and anxious to get around. And I'm just trying to milk this for another lap or two. I think we're, as I mentioned before, we're scheduled to pit in lap 8. And definitely want to try and stay ahead of the Mercedes. And when we get into our pit stop, that will basically be the tail of the race. So now skipping ahead to the end of lap 7, able to trim off some time. Tires not looking too bad. And looks like we're going to be able to gain a couple of positions. And yes, we are up into 4th position. And still being chased by Rosberg, coming in behind, looks like Hamilton. And yes, Hamilton up into P3. And quick correction, Weber has come in behind us in P5. He was coming out of the pit lane, I noticed. So Rosberg must have gone into pit. I didn't notice that coming down the straight. So basically this lap is going to tell all. As you can see, I'm really starting to lose my grip here. Even though my tire indications, my tire graphic doesn't look too bad. Definitely starting to feel the wear of the tires, and just trying to nurse it around and keep Hamilton in our sights, and hopefully we can resume in front of the Mercedes. But Schumacher did go in 2 laps ago, and given his pace prior to that, you have to think that he's definitely putting in faster lap times than me, which haven't been that quick at all. As you can see, start to roll over the curb and start to lose it just a little bit, coming around here in turn 10, which is a corner that I mightily struggled with in 2010. Just had a really, really hard time with it, and strangely haven't had a lot of problems with it in this go-around. And if I had to point to one corner that was much more of a thorn in my side, it would have been that one that we just went through, which is turn 11. It's just a very difficult corner to judge your speed on, and right when you think you've got it right, you usually end up going wide to the right. And so what you've probably noticed in prior laps is I've overcompensated for that, and that's what's given me problems hitting those curbs, going too fast and being a little too careful. So now coming around here to the end of lap 8, going to go ahead and go into pit, turning down our fuel mix here as we head in. And we have conserved some pretty good fuel. We should have a couple of laps by now. And time to find out if we can compete with Mercedes, who we've been racing with all afternoon. And let's see what kind of pit stop we get from the team here. And very slow, a mind-numbing 5-second pit stop. And for reasons unknown to me, pit stops in 2012 are much slower than 2011. So let's see who we're racing with coming out of the pit. It looks like it's Schumacher, and he's able to get around us. So there's our question answered in terms of pace. Let's see if we can keep him in our sights here. And you can see that Rosberg is behind us. So we're in the midst of a Mercedes sandwich. And basically we have lost one position from the pit stops, and actually I feel pretty fortunate that it's only one position. So now moving ahead to the start of lap 10, and you can see that Rosberg has picked up right where his teammate had left off earlier in the race and able to overtake us on the start-finish straight, but just like before, able to glide back in front of him there at turn 1 and stay ahead. So clearly the rest of the race is going to be dueling with Mercedes. And even though we're alone for a moment, you can see now at the start of lap 12 that we're actually being joined by another car. So Rosberg going to make a move here on the inside. And you can see that we've got some extra fuel. Going to go ahead and bump up our fuel mix. And there's Rosberg and being chased by another car. Not sure who it is. Let's see if there's an overtake here. And yes, Sergio Perez has overtaken P9. So Sergio Perez, who was with Michael Schumacher earlier in the race and was giving me a hard time early on, basically the pecking order is just about the same as before. As you can see, I start to go a little wide there at turn 10, and Rosberg now in front of Sergio Perez, and they are trading spots back in P9s, trying to keep position here on the points. And again, going very, very slow through turn 11 and going a little bit wide there, and Rosberg is all over me now. And now as we get closer to the start of the final lap, the AI will definitely get very, very pushy and probably start to get more aggressive with every passing corner. And my thinking is that if I can maintain P8 through turn 1, I should be able to keep that spot. But we don't want to get ahead of ourselves as we come down here through the final corner. And you can see that I start to go a little bit wide, might have spoken too soon. Here comes Rosberg on the inside. He falls back now. For some reason, I'm not sure. You'd think that he would stay on the inside and make a push. But now you can see activating DRS and coming down in a familiar fashion. And as I had hoped, should be able to outbrake him here. And we were able to do so. So now it just becomes a question of keeping it on the rails for the final lap. And we know all of our problem areas, of course. And skipping ahead here to turn 11. And you can see what happens. I start to go over the curb and start to lose it unbelievably. And as you may have noticed if you've been following the young season of my series so far, that I've had a lot of problems with losing a position in the final lap. And obviously don't want to see that happen here with Nico Rosberg. You can see that he's following pretty closely, and chances are he's going to get very aggressive on the start-finish straight, heading towards the finish line, coming around the last corner here. And you can see he's right there and have a little bit of problems with the curb. And there goes Rosberg now having a look on the inside. And was threatening on the outside for just a moment, but now backing off, and we're able to cross the finish line ahead of him and finish 8th. And there's the Force Indias, who were right behind Rosberg. So a very spirited ending there, and able to beat our teammate who finished in 13th. Would have been nice to get 7th, but Schumacher was able to beat us out of the pits. So let's have a quick look at the results. Jenson Button there winning in the McLaren, and there we are in the midfield. And Kimi not able to do much with his poor starting position in 18th, able to finish 16th. And his teammate, Roman Grosjean, there with the DNF. So a really bad day for Lotus. And they'll be anxious to move on to Spain, which is the next race at Catalunya. And so far we've got 4 races in the books and points in all of them. So enjoying how this is starting out. And we'll have to wait and see if the car improves as the season goes on. We might even be able to compete for a podium before the season's over, but certainly don't want to be looking too far ahead heading into one of the more difficult stretches of the season for me. I struggle at Catalunya typically, and then following Catalunya is Monaco, which is an absolute grind. I do enjoy the circuit, but it's extremely difficult. And given that they've increased the minimum race distance to 25%, it's going to be even longer than before. I can't remember the lap count from 2011, 14 or 16 laps, something like that. So going to have to be prepared for that challenge. And these are primarily the reasons why I'm not counting a lot of points in the next couple of races. Things might pick up for me in Montreal. That's at least been my historical pattern. So hopefully you'll be there to find out with me to see how things go. And in the meantime, feel free to fall back on my channel for a number of other F1 2012 videos, including a 10-part season challenge mode series, which I've listed a link to the playlist for in the description here. And if you're interested, I have over 200 videos of Forza 4 and F1 2011, many of which have commentaries, so plenty of content to keep you occupied. So that's all for now from Bahrain. Moving on to Catalonia. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you soon.